I've been thinking about what I said yesterday in reference to I'm actually like low maintenance and stuff like that, and it's actually pretty easy for me to be satisfied if I don't listen to those other intrusive thoughts and voices and stuff like that. And I did decently well today. It'd be easy for me to pick apart all the ways I failed or the ways I didn't do that good of a job of it. But overall, just I gotta think on the positive sides, of course. And really, it's like a one step at a time thing. As yeah, the most of the obstacles today were honestly pretty brief. I was able to it's just about that consistency. About keeping I don't know, keeping my word to myself first off, but then reminding myself of all the millions of times I bitched about the same thing over and over again. Eventually, it'll click on how to get yourself out of that. And really, the truth of the matter is, it's like, and really, it was just because I saw this video today. Now, this is a topic, the kind of topic of the video, but the specific part I'm thinking of is something that's been very relevant specifically in America for a while now, that we have so little problems that people are just coming up with ones, and that's when all the woke shit and all that goes too far and shit like that, is because they people are so void of any real problems that they start coming up with shit. And I realize that even though I've been poking fun at that, I've been doing the same thing. It looks different, obviously, very obviously. But I've been doing the same thing, and I feel like we all are kind of stuck there in one way or the other. Some of us are more obnoxious about it than others, but we all are at this, a lot of us, not all of us, but like a lot of us are kind of like at that point where we don't, and especially if you have previous trauma that you're used to having problems and now you don't, it's like you're freaking the fuck out. But it's also just human nature to have something to like fight against and stuff like that. And people like to make shit up, and I've done it myself to myself. That's been the topic of for a lot of these videos. It's just me coming up with shit to kind of just, you know. But yeah, no, it's just in this video, they just said that, and I've heard this thing a million times, but it was specific. Maybe it had to do with the fact that I made the videos that I made, that I had the therapy session that I had, all this kind of stuff, and just really clicked for me how much I've been separating myself from those kind of people, and how much I'm actually acting like them in a way, even though it doesn't look the same. So, yeah, it's been that has helped a lot. So I've still had a lot of those intrusive thoughts all day of the reasons, know why of how I fucked this up, or how I'm doing this wrong right now, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, oh wait, there's this you're forgetting something, whatever it is, whatever obstacle I can create that doesn't actually exist. And it ends up being so brief because I can just, for some reason, this day, it's been a lot easier to sink into that mindset of, or to remind myself of a thing that I know, of the fact of like, if the thing that's bothering you so much is really that important, it will come back to you, right? Because I had been conditioned at a young age to kind of like, there's always a problem, right? There's always something. And there's always something I'm doing wrong. But that's only something I've been like told by other people growing up. And I haven't been told shit like that as an adult. In fact, I've been told more ways that I'm doing things right than I'm doing them wrong. But I still do that to myself, and I still convince myself I'm doing something wrong. So it's me, in those moments, reminding myself, just kind of like, what I just said there, it's like, if it's actually that important, it'll come back to you, because like and it also helps that I took a fucking EQ test recently, emotional intelligence thing, and it shows how freaking self-aware I am. It's just I have a problem with the self-sabotage and stuff like that. So it's really reminding me, so having that a literal number in front of my face like that does help in the fact of like you are actually very self-aware. The things that you know, you don't think you know them, but you don't think you know them. You know them. You know the right ways to go about this. You're just listening to that intrusive whatever that's going on. So, and just reminding myself, it's like, like I said, if what you're forgetting, the missing whatever, the thing you're freaking out about, if it was actually important, it will come back to you. Rarely does a super important thing, like even if it feels like it, like you've had moments where you forgot something that was really important from the story. It's like, oh my God, I forgot all this. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. And that's kind of what I mean. I'm not saying there aren't important things that can slip your mind and be like, oh, fuck that. But, like, even with those things, it's like it's not the fucking end of the world because you do end up remembering it. It sucks that you didn't remember it in the moment, sure, but it's like it's never an irreparable thing. Things just kind of happen the way they're supposed to happen, and that thing, wasn't time for that thing to be a thing, to whatever. It'll come back, and like I don't know, it just kept clicking with me the whole day about all the ways that yes, those things still feel very real to me, but it's me kind of using the little cheat code to bypass it, and that's like the only time I've referenced cheat codes in life as a good thing. Usually I reference it in the fact of people coping, creating cheat codes in their brain to kind of like rewire things to kind of like, cope with life and kind of just like try to make sense out of things that don't make sense. This is like me doing it, but like the other way around. This is sort of me coping, I guess you could still say, but like in more of the sense of all the things that the things that you need to bypass are things that are damaging to you versus it could seem damaging, the other people that do it, the cheat code thing, but they're trying to fight off something that's uncomfortable. So I guess it's kind of the same thing, but it's not. It's me instead of dealing with all these uncomfortable things and trying to put things in a specific box just to get myself to whatever. This is me constantly having a problem with trying to put things into specific boxes instead of just being like, just is what it is. I don't say that nearly enough. It is what it is, because the fuck you gonna do? So, it's really reminding myself how much control I really have. Even when it really seems like I don't. Because even all the things that I have a problem with, I can still make sense of in some way of why it's not working the particular way I want it to right now. And a lot of times the reason something is in a specific way that I want it to be is not because it will never be that way. It's because it's just not going to be that way right now. And that doesn't mean that it's never going to be that way. So I guess that's a problem too. It's like, because I'm not in this perfect whatever right now, that'll never happen. And I guess I just kind of forgot that, even though I've in the past been very good about, being in the moment and stuff like that, and I remember what that feels like, but through this past like 2 years now, I've just been, wait, is it 2 years? No, it's a year and a half. Okay, going on 2 years. I've just been so just fighting with myself, all this kind of stuff about, I make one little mistake and I go to fall apart. But like, the truth is I was looking for that. It wasn't a confirmation. It was confirmation bias. It was me looking for the reason to fall apart because I still didn't completely understand what was wrong with me. I knew there was something wrong, but I was pointing. I wasn't looking at the obvious thing right in the face. The thing I knew was the problem. I do that thing that a lot of us have done or maybe continue to do, where the obvious solution to your problem or the obvious problem you have, whatever, the obvious thing is like too obvious, right? So you go try to find any other reason or any other explanation or any other solution or whatever it is that's just like all around that instead of the one that's staring you straight in the face. Usually the simplest answer or solution tends to be the right one. I've proved that time and time again. I just need to remember that. And I know I'm still weird about showing off music, especially since I don't have quite the audio production skills and yet. And I'm not too good at presenting that part, so it makes me kind of embarrassed to show off music that I have. But I have made a lot of good music, and it's sitting in the vault. But I've made a lot of it, and most of the time, well, not most of the time, all the freaking time, you'll be like, you need a different tale on this. This doesn't feel complete, whatever, all this kind of stuff. And it always ends up being like, you overthink these kind of stuff, or maybe this, da 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 da. But it ends up being something as dumb and simple as like, what if you played this, but you hit this fret instead of this one, or something like that. Something really stupid, simple like that. And it's just always like that. And I still deal with that. I still deal with like that when playing, of like thinking of some overcomplicated shit to try to make it fit, but then being like, oh, it's usually the simplest solution. And through having a thing I can see and listen to and all this kind of stuff, example of that, you'd think I'd learn, like, oh no, you're doing that for your life as well. You do this thing where you constantly only to find out it's not that fucking complicated. It's usually the simplest answer, especially when you are as self-aware as I am. It's like you're making things more complicated because you think that's what it needs to be. You think you need to be normal like everybody else. You think you need to be, not, I don't know. You just, in whatever way, it's just me, whatever version that it looks like, whatever avenue it is in life, whatever I'm going through, it's always comes down to just me putting myself down and me limiting myself because I don't feel like I deserve to push past that barrier. So I'm getting better at that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's just been my day. I've kind of just wanted to talk about it because I didn't want to stir on it and then go right back to the old shit way of thinking because I didn't have some sort of outlet. I mean, I know I could just talk to other people about it, which I might do in a minute here, but like I also wanted to keep the consistency of this and just be like honest about shit. And plus I want to like use this as a way to motivate myself to move forward with showing off and releasing the music, because the more I talk about this, the more that topic does come up. It's not always like the focus of it or anything like that. In fact, it hasn't been to this point, but more and more I get more comfortable with talking about it and kind of opening up that side of myself a little bit. And that's very important if I want to like, share it with people like I do, because I have a lot of good shit saved up. But yeah, so it's been my day. Pretty chill, surprisingly. It's I say surprisingly because I drink a lot of caffeine. I've been fighting with that demon, but like I've figured out a way to like hack it more, about a better way to go about quitting. I guess I knew I needed to do this, but I've been more and more just finding better motivation. That's all I needed. What is a good motivation? And there are things that could have been motivating factors before, but I'm so stuck in the mindset I was in, I couldn't see, or I couldn't accept that as like, because I was still in the self-defeating mindset, of glug, 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 drink and all this kind of stuff. So anything, that was like a motive, like for instance, specifically, I'm thinking of a motivation of something so shitty's happening that should motivate me to get out of it. It wasn't the case then. I saw something really shitty happening. I'm like, oh, guess I'm a fucking failure. So it's flipping that script a bit, but not just because I find those. I mean, what does help is, when the same shitty thing happens over and over again. I guess that is what it is, actually. Mostly my motivations lately has been seeing the same pattern over and over again. You just get exhausted of it. It's like, I'm fucking done. That's where the motivation is like just, you just kind of get tired and it's time to make a change. And it's as simple as that. A lot of times it takes time to get to that point, and it sucks, because time is time and it takes time. But, that's what it tends to be a lot of time. I said time a lot. Yeah. Also, the most evident thing of, like, I've definitely drank too much caffeine is the fact that I keep switching hands with this because my arms are getting tired easy. You know, that's if you didn't know, one of the reasons I'm trying to quit caffeine is because it makes my body super tense, and I used to be really strong, and I'm having difficulty now doing shit like this. So I need to like, but then need to go through the phase of it detoxifying, you know, getting out of my body, and that's gonna be a struggle because I'm gonna be really low energy, but I just need to keep this motivation going to push myself through those moments and eventually get to the other side. And just like I said, time takes time. It's just a matter of just being patient and knowing that I'm better than I think I am, or better than I tell myself, you know, like I'm capable of not doing that self-destructive thing. You know, it's not waiting for the moment it comes back, because that's the thing, is the fearing the bad thing happening again is what keeps me with those bad habits, right? Just go through this really rough period I'm about to go through here with this fucking detoxification of caffeine, and just know that this is just how it's gonna be. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's real. It's not just you coping. It's real, right? Because you're so used to people coping. You know, you see this all the time. People coping all the time about, you know, some ridiculous shit and like convincing themselves it's whatever else. You're not doing that. You're at the point, you know, you need, I'm talking to me right now, you need to be, you know, honest with yourself. You telling yourself all these good things isn't you gaslighting yourself. This is you telling the truth. When you talk shit about yourself, that's when you're fucking gaslighting yourself. So